By the coldest week of that Montana winter, families in Red Willow Valley were burning their own furniture just to stay alive. Cabins still froze. Fires never lasted. And the short walk from a front door to a barn became the most dangerous distance a person could cross. But on the far edge of the valley, something didn't match. There was a place where the smoke rose thin, lazy, not desperate. A place where no one ran through the wind to reach the animals, where no one shouted over the storm, and where two boys, in the middle of a killing winter, walked from their house to the barn in their shirt sleeves. The valley didn't understand it. They couldn't, because 6 months earlier, they had all seen what that woman was building. It started in autumn, when Mara Kincaid began cutting into the prairie like she meant to reshape it. She didn't raise beams, didn't order lumber, didn't frame anything the way the valley understood. She cut earth. Long strips of sod, thick with roots, heavy, alive. And she laid them down between her cabin and her barn, not as a path, not as a fence, but as a wall, a wide, sloping, rising mass of earth that grew higher with every day of work. From the valley road, it looked wrong, like the land itself was folding upward to swallow the space between her buildings. Men slowed their horses just to stare. Women whispered when they passed. They said grief had broken her, that losing Hugh that first spring had finally taken what sense she had left. Because no one built like that. No one trusted dirt more than timber. No one buried their own house on purpose. But Mara Kincaid wasn't trying to build something new. She was trying to survive something she already understood. The winter before had nearly killed them. Not in one moment, not in a storm, but slowly, relentlessly. The kind of cold that doesn't announce itself, just moves in and stays. Her husband had already been gone. Hugh, buried before the first frost had hardened the ground, leaving her alone with 2 boys, Owen and Samuel, and a cabin built exactly like every other one in the valley, which meant it failed in exactly the same way. The wind never stopped. Not for an hour. Not for a night. It pressed against the north wall, day after day. And it didn't just make the air cold. It took the heat. Straight out of the wood, out of the floor, out of their bodies. Mara would sit by the stove, one side of her warm, the other already freezing again. The boys slept in coats, their breath visible in the loft. The idea didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces, fragments of memory, from a place that had nothing in common with Red Willow Valley. Or so it seemed. Mara remembered the lighthouse. Not the light, the base. The part no one noticed. Built low, thick, pressed into rock instead of rising above it. It didn't fight the wind. It let the wind pass. Over it. Around it. But never through it. And then she remembered something else. Not from the coast. From the journey west. The sod houses. Low shapes half sunk into the prairie. Ugly. Heavy. Ignored by everyone who wanted proper walls. But inside, they stayed warm. Because the earth didn't care about the wind. It absorbed, held, stayed steady, while everything above it changed. That was the difference. Wood lost heat. Earth kept it. And suddenly, the problem in her mind shifted. She didn't need a stronger fire. She didn't need more wood. She needed to stop losing what she already had. So she changed the question. Not, how do I heat the house? But, how do I keep the wind from touching it at all? And the answer was already there, right under her feet. She marked the ground first, from the side door of the cabin to the wide opening of the barn. 8 feet across. A straight line through what used to be open danger. Now, it would become something else. She bought a cutting plow from an estate sale. Old, heavy, meant for prairie work. $12, all she could spare. And she put it to the ground. The blade cut deep, through grass, through roots, through the dense mat that held the prairie together. Each strip 2 feet wide, 4 inches thick, heavy as stone, alive. She and the boys worked in rhythm. Cut, pry, lift, drag, again, again, again. Their hands blistered, then hardened. Their backs burned, then steadied. Day after day, they turned the land itself into building material. She didn't build one wall. She built 2. One pressed against the north side of the cabin. The other, 8 feet out, running parallel all the way to the barn. And between them, she filled everything. Rock, loose soil, gravel, anything with weight, anything that wouldn't move, anything that could hold temperature. Layer by layer, it rose, sod laid like brick, joints staggered, weight pressing down, locking everything in place. Every 2 feet, she tied the walls together, wood crosspieces, anchoring the mass so it couldn't bow outward. It wasn't a wall. By midsummer, the shape of it couldn't be ignored anymore. It was too large, too heavy, too deliberate. What had started as curiosity turned into judgment, then certainty. She was doing it wrong. That's what they said. Not quietly, not carefully, openly. The first to speak it plainly was Gideon Pike. He had built half the cabins in Red Willow Valley. Men trusted him because his work stood, and because he never guessed. He knew. He rode out one afternoon, dust trailing behind him, and stopped at the edge of Mara's wall. He didn't greet her right away. He walked it. Slow, measured, boot against sod, hand against earth. Eyes moving between the wall and the cabin logs pressed behind it. Then he shook his head. "Mrs. Kincaid," his voice calm, professional. "You've built yourself a problem." Mara didn't stop working. "What kind?" she asked. "The kind that rots houses from the inside out." He gestured to the wall. "All that earth against wood. You're trapping moisture. Snow melts, water seeps. Your logs take it in. Give it 1 season, 2 at most, and that north wall will turn soft. After that, it won't hold anything." It sounded right. It always did when Gideon spoke. Because it came from experience, from years of watching things fail. And Mara knew, if he were right, this wasn't just a mistake. It was the end of her home. But she didn't argue. She didn't explain. She just nodded. "I've thought about that," she said, and went back to work. That was the moment the valley decided. Not that she might be wrong, but that she already was. Because if she had an answer, she would have said it. They didn't see what she had done first. They didn't see the week she spent before laying a single strip of sod, rendering fat, thick, heavy, mixing it with pine tar until it turned black and sharp with smell. They didn't see her brush it onto the logs, layer after layer, sealing every inch from foundation to roofline. Ships, not cabins. They didn't see the trench she dug below, filled with coarse stone, pulling water away before it could touch the wood. They didn't see the roofline she extended, wide, sloping, forcing rain and melt to fall clear of the wall itself. They saw dirt. She built a system, but systems are invisible when they work, and mistakes are obvious even when they're not real. So the name started, at the trading post, like most things did. The burrow, said with a laugh. Said again, louder. She's burying herself for winter. Won't even need a door soon. Just dig down and crawl in. It spread quickly, too quickly to stop. By August, no one called it a wall anymore. It was a hole, a mistake, a sign of fear. Even family felt it. Eamon came late one evening, when the light was soft and the work had finally stopped. He didn't mock her. He didn't laugh, which made it worse. "They're talking," he said. "I know," Mara answered. "They think you're afraid. They think you don't know how to run this place. They think Hugh would have done it differently." That one stayed in the air, heavier than the rest, because it wasn't about the wall. It was about him, about what he would have done, and what she wasn't. Mara looked past him, toward the north side, toward the wall still rising. "I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm trying to keep the boys warm." Eamon nodded, but he didn't understand. Not yet. No one did, because by the time the last layer of sod was set and the corridor stood complete, the valley had already decided what it meant. It wasn't strength. It wasn't design. It wasn't thinking. It was fear. And when the first frost came, silvering the ground in the early mornings, they didn't watch with curiosity anymore. They watched and waited for winter to prove her wrong. Winter didn't arrive all at once. It tightened, day by day, degree by degree, until the valley felt smaller. By late December, the cold stopped easing. It held, pressed down, like something that had settled in and wasn't leaving. Then the wind returned, not in bursts, not in storms, constant, relentless. 40 miles an hour on the open flats, faster on the ridges, cutting through wool, through wood, through anything that wasn't ready for it. And that was the problem. Nothing was ready for it. Cabins that had stood for years began to fail. Not collapse. Fail. Heat vanished, faster than it could be made. Fires burned higher, hotter, more often. And still the cold moved in. Through walls, through floors, through every seam no one had noticed in summer. People stayed close to the stove, because that was the only place that still felt alive. Wood piles shrank, faster than anyone expected. A cord a week, gone. Another, gone. Then the good wood ran out. Seasoned oak, dry pine, all of it. What was left? Green, wet, smoking more than it burned. Chimneys clogged, fires choked, and sometimes they turned. Flames where they shouldn't be, roofs catching, men climbing through smoke just to keep their own homes from burning down. Outside, it was worse. The barn run, 40 yards through open ground. Snow drifted waist high. Wind erased tracks before you could follow them back. People got lost walking places they had known for years. Livestock began to die. Not all at once. Slowly, frozen where they stood. Children got sick. A cough that didn't leave. Voices fading in rooms that never warmed. The valley wasn't breaking loudly. It was breaking quietly. And at the edge of it, nothing broke. Snow came for Mara's place the same as everywhere else. Wind hit it just as hard. But it didn't stay. It climbed. Up the slope of the earthen wall. Over it. Past it. The north side. The side that had always lost. Was gone. Buried. Shielded. Untouched. And inside, the air didn't move. No drafts. No cold seams creeping across the floor. No walls bleeding heat into the storm. Because the wind never reached them. Mara fed the stove every 4 hours, sometimes 5. A few logs, nothing more. The heat stayed. Where before, it had vanished. The boys slept without coats, sat at the table reading, played on the floor. Not because the fire was stronger, but because nothing was stealing from it anymore. And the corridor, the thing they laughed at most, became the safest place on the homestead. No wind, no snow, just still air and packed earth. Mara walked to the barn without bracing herself, without guessing direction, without risking whether she'd make it back. She carried wood, checked the animals, came back. Every time. While others stayed inside because they couldn't afford the risk. While the valley burned everything, she burned almost nothing. While others fought the winter, she moved around it. At first, people didn't believe it. They noticed small things. The chimney smoke. Thin. Lazy. Not desperate. Then they noticed her. Outside, on the south side, splitting kindling. Not buried in coats. Not wrapped in fur. Just a shawl. It didn't fit. Nothing about it fit. The burrow wasn't failing. It was working. And that was harder to accept than if it had collapsed. Daniel came first, through wind that nearly turned him back. He expected cold, expected smoke, expected fear. What he found was something else. The cold reached its worst in the second week of January. The kind of cold that didn't just freeze water. It froze judgment. That was the morning Gideon Pike ran out of wood. Not low, not stretched thin. Gone. What he had left was green pine, wet, smoking, dangerous. He stood in his own cabin, the one he had built himself, and felt it losing. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to know it wouldn't hold. He thought of Mara, of the wall, of the thing he had dismissed. And for the first time, he wasn't certain. He loaded his sled with what good wood he had left. A quarter cord. More than he could spare. Less than she would need if he had been right. The journey out nearly broke him. Wind cut sideways. Snow erased the road. By the time he reached the edge of her land, his horse was shaking, and so was he. Then he saw it. Or rather, he didn't. The wall was gone, buried under snow, shaped into a smooth drift that rose up and over the cabin like part of the land itself. The wind hit it and climbed, lifted clean over the roof. Gone. The place was still. No roar, no cutting air, no violence. Just quiet. And the chimney, barely smoking, not dead, not struggling, just steady. His heart sank. He thought the fire had gone out, that he was too late. He climbed down, walked to the door, knocked hard against wood rimmed with ice. The door opened, and the warmth met him. Not a blast, not a rush, a presence, steady, held. He stepped inside, slow at first, then faster. When he felt it, the air, still, warm, like stepping into another season. Mara stood near the stove, calm, unhurried. "You shouldn't be out in this," she said. Gideon didn't answer. He couldn't, because behind her, he saw them. The boys. Owen. Samuel. On the floor. Playing. In their shirts. No blankets. No coats. No fear. He looked at the stove. The fire, low, controlled, not roaring, not desperate, working. How often? He managed. Mara glanced at the fire. Every few hours, she said. Less at night. He stared at her, at the walls, at the room, trying to make it fit what he knew. It didn't. He crossed to the thermometer, looked closely, took off his glove, read it again. 66 degrees. Outside, 40 below. A difference of over 100 degrees. He walked to the north wall, pressed his hand against it, expected cold, deep, hungry. It wasn't. Cool,